Hi guys, as you see here, today I'm going to talk about the cross section of the spinal cord. In my previous video I showed you the spinal cord within the vertebral column. Now if you take a cross section through the spinal cord, you can see this structure here. This is the cross section of the spinal cord. So the spinal cord is comprised of two parts. This butterfly shaped structure at the center, it is called the gray matter. So this is the gray matter, which is surrounded by this white color structure. It's called the white matter. White matter. So gray matter, as you see here, it projects anteriorly. This projection is called the ventral or anterior horn, and these two projections are called the dorsal or posterior. The point is that in addition to those ventral and dorsal horn, we also have an extra horn here in some segments. I'm going to show you on the whiteboard. So here is the ventral horn, this is the dorsal horn. In some spinal cord segments here, thoracic and lumbar spine, T1 to L2 spinal segments, we have an extra horn here. It is called lateral horn. Lateral horn. Just keep in mind this cervical spine, and below the L2 here we don't have, or sacral lumbar segments and coccyx, we don't have the lateral horn. We only have the lateral horn in T1 to L2. What do we have in this horn? We have the cell body. The cell body of the preganglionic sympathetic neurons. So, and the axon of the preganglionic sympathetic neurons exiting through this ventral horn, traveling alongside the motor neuron or motor axon, passing through this ventral root, and here it exits the spinal nerve. Here is the spinal nerve, exiting the spinal nerve through this way. This way it's called the white communicantis, and then it synapses onto the ganglion. Within this sympathetic chain, we have sympathetic chain or trunk. On the way of the sympathetic chain or trunk, we have this sympathetic ganglion. So preganglionic sympathetic neuron synapses onto the postganglionic neuron. The cell body of the postganglionic sympathetic neurons are within the ganglion. So preganglionic axon synapses onto the postganglionic neuron, and then the axon of the postganglionic neuron coming out of the ganglion and passing through this gray communicantis to communicate with spinal nerves, and then hitchhiking or jumping onto the spinal nerve and passing through the rami. So just keep in mind, we have two sympathetic neurons. One of them before the ganglion, before means preganglionic. One of them is after ganglion, postganglionic sympathetic. So the cell body of the preganglionic sympathetic neurons is within the lateral horn of the T1 to L2 spinal segments, and the axon exiting through the ventral horn, ventral root, and the spinal nerves, and then exiting the spinal nerve through the white communicantis, and synapses onto the cell body of the post-ganglionic sympathetic neurons, and the axon exiting the sympathetic chain through the gray communicantis, and then jumping onto the spinal nerve and then getting into the targeted organs. Why this one is the white communicantis? Because the preganglionic sympathetic neurons are covered by the myelin, that's why it is white communicantis, but the postganglionic does not covered by the myelin. There is no myelin. So you can see here in this model, this beautiful model shows the vertebral column. Within the vertebral column we have a spinal cord. This is the body of the vertebra, faces anteriorly. Spinous process faces posteriorly, so it can help you to differentiate the ventral horns from the dorsal horns. Ventral horn faces anteriorly like body, dorsal horns faces posteriorly. So you can also see on either side of the vertebral column we have sympathetic chains. So we have two long sympathetic chains. On the way of the sympathetic chains, these bulge areas are the ganglions, sympathetic ganglions. So it contains the cell body of the postganglionic sympathetic neurons. You can also see how the sympathetic chain communicates with the spinal nerve through the white and gray communicantis here. And on this model, I'm going to show you the sympathetic chain. So you can see we have two long sympathetic chains on either side of the vertebral column. You can see it starts at the base of the skull here and runs all the way down on either side of the vertebral column, and it goes down here to the base of the pelvis, pelvic floor.